Hello, everybody. My name's Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger brands, CPG brands, consumer packaged goods, can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you and if you're ready for it. The bottom line is Tracy and I have been doing this for a long time. We made a lot of mistakes, stumbled into a few good things too, and we would love to try to help you smooth out your journey to being successful at retail. Tracy?
Yeah. So Bruce and I have been in commercial operations in consumer packaged goods for 30 plus years. So what do we mean by commercial operations? Sales, marketing, managing distributors, managing brokers, acquisitions, divestitures, product development, just a broad array of different experiences that we've had. And as Bruce said, that's our goal, is to share it with our small, emerging, and challenger brands audience. So also on our show, we bring in colleagues, friends of the industry, brand founders to also share their key learnings and insights. So today is kind of a special episode for us. So Bruce, who do we have today and what are we going to talk about?
Well, Tracy, we have a guest that looks a lot like you. We're going to interview my colleague and friend, Tracy Priest, and we're going to talk about Expo West. And Tracy will go into a more specific definition of what that is. But as a guy who's been there 3 times, it is a massive show. And Tracy and I have talked about the importance of trade shows and how to get the most out of them because they're not cheap. So, Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce.
You're
Thanks for
now you're
having
now
me.
here as a guest. So why don't we start at the very, very beginning? Can you explain what Expo West is and how it came about?
Absolutely. So Expo West is the epicenter of the natural products industry. It occurs every year in March at the Anaheim Convention Center. And as Bruce said, it's a huge show. So this year, they estimated over 65,000 people and over 3,000 booths. This is also a place where trends in the industry start. About 10 years ago, there was this little concept called keto. And back then, that was a new thing. No one knows what it is. And today, keto foods and products are mainstream and very well known in the industry. So again, it's where trends start, and it's the epicenter of where the natural products industry really comes together.
So Tracy, for the folks that either are thinking about going or maybe they just had their rookie first time through, who attends this show? Is it just brands? Is it just, distributors? Who attends?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So brands definitely attend. That's number one. Buyers attend. So anything from a Kroger to a Sprouts to a Whole Foods, distributors attend, investors attend, and then a lot of service providers attend. So people who sell ingredients, people who sell machinery, all kinds of different people will also be there. Some of them will have booths, and some of them will just be walking around trying to sell brands on their services.
Hmm. So let's say that someone is considering going to Expo West next year, but all they want to do is attend and try to figure out the show and take the temperature.
Right.
What should a first time attender do? Everything from, planning to their agenda, travel, help them out. What's the
Absolutely.
MapQuest?
So the first two things that are the most important when you're a first-time attender is one, have a plan, and two, have a really comfortable pair of shoes because you are going to do a lot of walking. This is a huge, huge show. So the show starts on a Wednesday, and on Wednesday, only the North Hall is open. So that's the new products hall. It's 2 floors. They built this a couple years ago just for new products. So it is I will tell you, it is a madhouse. Very, very crowded because at that time, that's the only hall that is open at that time. And then on Thursday, the entire convention hall opens. So that'll be the main hall. And so the new products hall will open Wednesday through Friday, and then the rest of it is Thursday through Saturday. I really encourage first-time attenders to download the Expo West New Hope app, and it'll give you all of the exhibitors. It'll give you their booth numbers. It'll give you a lay of the land of where everything is, and it'll give you a map of the show, and you can actually pick out where you want to go. The biggest thing I will tell you is have a plan. You cannot walk this show in one day anymore. The show is also in the arena there, so it's in multiple locations. Meetings occur at the Marriott and the Hilton. So again, you're going to be doing a lot of walking. So have a plan of where you want to go. I would not recommend that you try and see the whole thing.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll mention is the show is so huge that the hotels right next to the convention center for next year are probably already sold out. But they have a lot of arrangements with hotels that are, gosh, it's hard to tell with the Anaheim traffic. Let's call it within a 10 or 15-mile radius, and there's tons of buses. So you don't have to worry about driving to this place every day. You can take buses, and it's extremely well run. Tracy's a many-time veteran, but from the times I've gone, having that map, not only the real map of how the place is laid out, but knowing the people that you really want to see so that you get it done. Because if you get caught in the human tidal wave, you may end up God knows where.
Exactly.
So Tracy,
Hey,
now
Bruce,
let's turn.
I want to a couple other things if
Oh,
you're an
please.
attendee. So New Hope does a great job of having educational workshops. They start on Wednesday, go all the way through Saturday. So if you have the opportunity to attend a couple of those, I definitely would. Also, I would also attend a couple of pitch slams. So New Hope has 2 or 3 different pitch slams, which is where brands come together and they pitch their product. So that's a great way to see how other brands are presenting. I would definitely use the show as a networking opportunity. So network with other brand founders who might be in your category. This is a community. So people are definitely willing to share. If you have the opportunity to meet with investors, I would use that time to do this. So not only looking at the brands in your category that you are in for next year, but also use it as a networking opportunity, an opportunity to absolutely to learn.
Tracy, what about speakers? I know that in the past there have been, quite an agenda of speakers covering different topics. How do you think that works into a first-time attendee?
Absolutely. So those are all put on by New Hope. So there'll be opening keynote speakers. They have different programs for new brands. So I would attend as much as you can, as your schedule would allow. They're very helpful.
And Tracy, just for the rookies, what is New Hope?
So New Hope is the marketing agency that actually puts on Expo West.
Okay, great. All right. So now let's say they've crossed the Rubicon and they've attended once, and now the next year's coming, and now they want to become a first-time exhibitor. What tips and watch outs would you offer folks that are thinking of making the plunge there?
Absolutely. So we're going to get into the cost of to attend. So this is not a cheap endeavor. So you want to make sure that if you're a first-time exhibitor, there's a couple things you want to make sure that you have. One is plenty of samples. You want people to try your product as much as possible. Have a great sell sheet, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So you want to have something that buyers and people can take away, a sample and a sell sheet. You want to make sure that you stand out. So think about over 3,000 booths. So make sure that you're hiring maybe a booth designer company to help you design your booth. But you really want to make sure that you stand out and that your booth is very appealing. This is all about brand awareness. You want people to know and know what your brand is about. So make sure that you are building, a great booth that really speaks to what your brand is about. the other thing is you want to interact with as many buyers as you can. So I'll talk a little bit about you want to get as many meetings with buyers as you can, but it's very hard because buyers don't take a lot of meetings anymore because they don't have the time to walk the show. So I will tell you that there are retailers who will put out on LinkedIn prior to the show, probably in January with the show in March, and they'll be taking applications for new brands to meet with them. So you'll get, I'll tell you a couple that I attended, Kroger, Sprouts, and Whole Foods will put out on LinkedIn, you know, we're going to meet with new emerging brands and you will apply for a meeting. And if you get one, that's great. You get about 5 or 7 minutes to pitch your brand. So again, you want to make sure that you're interacting with as many buyers as you can. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is not a selling show. This is a networking show and planting seeds, not a selling show.
Great. Okay, Tracy, live TV. So even though we usually talk about small emerging brands, if you were a service provider to the small emerging brand industry attending Expo West, what would you do at your booth if you're a service provider?
Yeah, and that's tough because the brands that are there paying a lot of money, they don't want to talk to service providers as much as they want to talk to buyers about their brand. So I guess the biggest thing I would tell a service provider, be polite, have a business card, maybe have a leave behind if you can. What I would recommend really to service provider is, here's what I do. Who can I follow up with after the show? And only take a brief amount of time to say, this is what I do. I sell seasoning, or I sell equipment, or I sell marketing. This is what I do. Here's my card. Who can I follow up with? And when can I follow up with? Would you mind if I dropped off a little sell sheet that tells you a little bit more? But really be polite and cognitive of the fact that they're there to meet with retailers, not for you to pitch them a service.
Exactly. All right, Tracy, what were the biggest trends you saw at Expo West? You gave the keto example from a few years ago. What are you
Right.
seeing this year?
Yeah, so plant-based continues to be huge. For the first time, I tried a plant-based corn dog, Bruce. Never had seen that before. So
Well, I mean, who hasn't?
exactly. I tried some plant-based jerky, tried some plant-based bacon. So plant-based continues to be really a huge, still continue to be a huge category. New this year is better for you prepared meals, ethnic food. So I saw a Mediterranean food, I saw Mexican, all kinds of different prepared and ethnic foods, but they've taken a lot of the bad things out of it and made it and are making it healthy. So I thought that was really an interesting trend this year. Also, good for you beverages, lots of beverages this year. I saw low carb, low sugar, things with adaptogens, probiotics, prebiotics, all kinds of things like that. So still beverages are huge, a very competitive category. You've really got to be able to stand out if you're bringing a beverage to Expo West. Mushrooms, everything. I tried a mushroom jerky. So mushrooms are still hot. Chocolate with mushrooms, all kinds of crazy stuff. Functional ingredients and adaptogens are still huge. So lots of things like that. And then trying to make unhealthy things like gummies, candy, cookies, chocolate, and then taking those and making them healthy were also a huge trend this year.
Interesting. So thinking back to executional and walking the floor in terms of trends, did you see anything? And sadly, this might only be the bigger brands, but did you see anything super clever that, to your earlier point about, draw attention, make sure you stand out? Did you see anything that really you're like, wow,
there's not,
that's
I
good
didn't
idea?
really, yeah, I didn't really see anything that was that unique. Like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. Like, I think the thing that I saw most were the refrigerated prepared meals, so much more than I did before. Also, a lot of non-alcoholic cocktail mixers. So that is still a huge category and growing, lots of competition. but I didn't really see anything that stood out that said, oh my gosh, I've never thought of that before. So I think what happens is these trends start, like mushrooms, adaptogens, and things like that. And then everybody duplicates that in different kinds of formats.
Okay. So you talked about the biggest trends. I think we also hit on the hot categories, unless there was something else you wanted to touch on before we move along.
No, I don't think so. Those are the things that I saw. So
Great. So we've set the table here about how big the show is, and we've given some ideas on how to make sure that your investment of both your time and treasure is productive for you. So Trace, what are some of the ballpark costs that people need to think about when they go to this show? Let's say they want to exhibit, not just attend, because that's buy a ticket, get a hotel room,
mhm.
buy a badge, walk the
Okay.
floor. Got it. But if you want to exhibit, kind of give an overview of the things people need to be putting into their little, show P&L.
Absolutely. So this is not a cheap, not a cheap endeavor. An average budget I saw, talk to somebody, they had a 10 by 10 booth and they told me it was about a $30,000 investment. So that investment included the 10 by 10 booth, booth development. Don't forget, you've got to ship all your samples and the booth. You've got travel, you've got food. So again, this is not a cheap endeavor. You can get into with a 20 by 20 booth, into the 70 to six-figure range, depending on how crazy you really want to go. So this is not a cheap endeavor. And I know it's something that brands should definitely, consider in their budget for next year. And I would start planning that budget now, for next year. So when attendees go to the show, they're able to pick their booth already for next year. So be aware that if there was a booth or a brand that attended this year, they've already picked their booth for next year.
So Tracy, knowing that the expense you just laid out and the sheer mass of humanity at a show like this, ideally, how many people should a small emerging brand send? I can't imagine one person could
No,
handle. I mean, is this like a 3-person job minimum?
yeah, I would say three people. It was perfect for a 10 by 10 booth. If you've got a bigger 20 by 20 booth, I would bring, 5+ people to make sure that people can rotate in and take breaks and go to meetings and things like that.
Right. And that's the part I think some of the entrepreneurial brands, trying to save a little money, you've already made this huge commitment of your time and money to have a booth. If a buyer comes by, you need to be able to talk to them. If you have an offsite meeting, someone needs to go there, and there's going to be a ton of people coming by,
Mhm.
just taking samples, asking random questions. So again, this really isn't something, this is not a one-person operation at
Absolutely
all.
not. And one other thing I think that's kind of cool too. So the Anaheim Convention Center is basically blocked off. So you can't like drive up to it, right? They have food trucks now in the center part. And then there's also opportunities for you to have a pop-up tent and hand out samples as well. So there's different ways to participate if you didn't want to have a booth. There were a lot of brands out there just having a tent and handing out samples for the day.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen those, and I've eaten way too many tasty things walking around the show. So
Exactly.
Tracy, you mentioned early on that this is this a selling show? Yes or no? And then give a little detail
Yeah.
as to why that's your answer.
Yeah, it is definitely not a selling show. Like I said, it's to build brand awareness, it's to hand out samples, it's to interact with buyers, but this is not to take orders. This is to interact with buyers, and we'll talk the importance of follow up and get that meeting. But really, it is about to build. It's about building awareness for your brand. And to be honest with you, it takes a couple of times to go. I know of one brand uh, that I know this is their third or fourth expo, and I remember them at their first one, and no one knew what the brand was and didn't understand what they did, things like that. And now buyers are coming by as, oh, I remember seeing you last year. So it is about an investment in building that brand over time.
Right. All right, Tracy. So one of the things we talk about almost regardless of topic is the importance of and stylistically how to follow up properly. So why don't you share with the folks what your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So follow up is, like we talk about, is the key, but be respectful of people's, time. So I talked to a buyer, he gave me some really good tips about what to do and not to do. So his advice was, don't follow up and send an email on the Monday right after Expo. Expo runs through that Saturday. They're traveling back home and then they're trying to dig out. So he said, definitely follow up the week of Expo, but not on that Monday because they're trying to, to really dig out from all the emails from being, from being gone. So I thought that was really good, good advice. But when you're meeting with a buyer or you interacting with a buyer, ask them, what is the best way and what timing is it that I can follow up with you? The other thing is make sure that you don't inundate them with samples and sell sheets. Ask them, can you have because think about all the booths that will offer them a sample. Would you like a sample? Would you like our sell sheet? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, hey, how can I get you, how can I get you a sample? Do you have a card? Or scan their badge and say, that would be great. Can you send me samples, after the show? And here's my card and here's my address. But be very respectful of that and think about all the people that they're seeing in those 3 days or 4 days that they're there at the show and how many samples that people are going to try and give them and then have to bring them home with them in their suitcase.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because if you remember, folks, that those that have been with us a long time, when we interviewed the 12 buyers from large retailers, they said the perfect length of a deck is like 15 to 18 pages tops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I've been guilty, especially early in my career, of sending folks out with like the 60-page 5-pound deck where, buyers probably just want to put a knitting needle through their eye and mine for torturing them like that. So
Yeah.
at a show like this, you want to give them like a snappy one pager. And if you want to have a little bit of extra luck that your page survives the trip home, I've handed them out laminated. They can take the beating in the suitcase, but if you give them a deck, it's going to go into the garbage or into the
Absolutely.
recycling. They're just not going to take it home. So when you follow up, like Tracy said, how's the best way? And even then you want to send them something snappy. You're still just trying to pique their interest and get that real meeting when you can go in and really explain what you're trying to do.
Yeah, don't try and go through your whole sales pitch or your deck with them. One of the things that was recommended to me is have a QR code on your sell sheet that links to your website. So I thought that was a really cool idea. But it's really about how am I going to stand out with my booth and also with my sell sheet, giving them all the information that they need, but no more and no less.
Right. All right, Tracy, any other thoughts before we wrap up this show?
Make sure that you are invest in the scanner. It costs, but it gives you at the end all of the people that you saw. So scan people's badges, and then just a couple other common sense things. So if you see a buyer in the aisle that's talking to somebody, don't hover. Just be polite. I think I know you're there to sell. I know you're there to get buyers' attentions, but just make sure that you're respectful. And again, if a buyer comes by and you see them and you're talking to something, make eye contact. I'll be right with you, and then continue your conversation. Be polite to the person that you're talking to, and polite to the person that wants to engage with you as well. So I know these things seem common sense, but you'd be surprised. Here's another one. Don't have your face in your phone while you're standing there at the booth. It's just rude, and it makes people think that you're just you don't care and you're just there to take up time and space. So again, things are common sense, but I wanted to mention those. And then another thing, never, 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 and Bruce will agree with this, leave your booth unattended.
That is very true.
You would be surprised at a couple of the booths that I went by and no one was there. That you're wasting your time and money, and you look like, again, to buyers that may come by, well, this brand doesn't really care about being here.
Well, and the other thing, just to add to that, and this goes for any show, if you've paid the money for both the booth and to be there, work the show. Be there right when it starts and
Mhm.
stay till the final bell. You would be surprised how many people that you might really be hoping to meet will come around the show right at the beginning or right at the end because they know that certain people mail it in. They either come up an hour too late because they were out the night before, or they leave an hour early because they figure nothing's going to happen in the last hour. Work the show the whole time. Hey,
Yeah,
Tracy, is there a website or something people can go to learn more about
yeah.
Expo
So
West?
it's newhope.com. And then also you can download the app. So New Hope or Expo West, it's under both. And I definitely would utilize the app, and you can go on there and it'll show you all of the exhibitors that were there this year, that you can sort it by category. You can see the map of the entire show and where everything is laid out. So there's a lot of resources to help you educate yourself about the show for, again, definitely for next year.
All right. All right, Trace, let's roll into the big finish.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully you found this very helpful. And it was great just to have Bruce and I on today. But also we want to just ask a favor, and that is if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify. If you've enjoyed this, also share it with folks, founders, service providers, whoever that you think would enjoy it as well. We just ask that. And then also follow us on our Road to Retail LinkedIn page. And then again, we post quite a few times during the month. But thanks for joining us today, and we appreciate it.
Yep, and you can find that at Road to Retail, road just like the sign over Tracy's shoulder. That's where you can find our podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck out there.
Thanks so much.